So here's the other thing, because we're dealing with roaches, bugs, and we deal with rats, but there's not that many cases of people like with hantavirus and stuff like that with rats, PCOS, because we're taking it, we got gloves, we're putting it into a bag, we're sealing it, throwing it in the garbage.
Right.
We don't have to bury it, we don't have to burn it. There's a whole set of things that just freak me out when I started looking at wildlife as a PCO, that I'm like, taking certain shots and the zoonotic diseases and the transmittable diseases and the treating of the traps, how you can't just take that trap and just put it in the back of your truck after an animal has peed all over the back of your truck.
Well, you can. I mean, it's a matter of how, let's put it this way. Certainly there are disease issues with wildlife. There's no doubt about it. Okay. So let's just lay that out there. Yes. If how neurotic we have to be regarding that is a little bit of a debate. Now you have people on a different strain of things. So I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I was very religious about wearing gloves when I was handling my traps. So I would never grab an animal with bare hands, even whether dead or not. Didn't matter. I was always having gloves. I mean, it drives me nuts when I see guys on Facebook holding young raccoons with their bare hands. It's cute and it's a great photo shot, but it's something I wouldn't do, right? And so just because you don't wear that raccoon, what's on him now? So you want to think about disease, but if you realize that the back of your truck is always dirty, then you treat it as always dirty. So I think that's where most people have to realize you can't go too far on the disease side, other than just maintaining. At the end of the day, you're taking your clothes off before you're going into the house, you're showering. You're always making sure that you're washing your hands before you eat, before you're smoking. Just like with pesticides, you're always thinking, what am I touching here? And then always being cognizant of your equipment. Is this equipment contaminated? Is this equipment clean? I don't mean contaminated. When we say clean, we don't mean sterile. Nothing's going to be sterile in the back of that truck.
Right.
It's going to be, you're right, the animal's going to be peeing, the animal's going to be pooping. Treat it as a biological problem and think about how the back of your truck is always going to be a dirty area, and always remember that. So don't go putting your bare hands on the floor of your truck and then licking your hands, right? So some of these animals, some of these diseases will die when they're exposed to heavy sunlight. You've got lots of sunlight in southern Florida. And they will also die from dehydration, like some of the raccoon roundworm. It will desiccate. It will dry out if it's exposed to dry conditions. It takes a while.
Right.
But it's not, otherwise we'd be up to our eyeballs with raccoon roundworm, right? It wouldn't go away. So sometimes when we try to teach people about disease, sometimes we overstate the threat because people have not taken it seriously enough. And that's certainly true. A lot of wildlife control operatives have not taken the risk that they're exposed to. But I would argue the back of your truck is probably going to be less risky in many ways than the way we're going through Addicks underneath decks where cats have been peeing and urinating all over the place, and the fleas. And then, of course, some of the hazards we have from insulation and whatever's floating around in those attics and crawl spaces. And people get cavalier. They take their respirator off, or they're not fitted properly. They're not checking, making sure they have good seals. There's, some people just have they're not realizing the small effects that these things can have over time. In that we do need to be wearing Tyvek suits probably more often than we are.
Got it.
But we don't want to overstate it, because otherwise we would all been dead a long time ago.
What about I'm totally still ignorant about wildlife as far as what about vaccines and things that people need to look at?
Yeah, if you're dealing with rabies vector species and you have rabies in your area, it's something you should definitely talk about your doctor. And so that's certainly one that you can be vaccinated. There's very few vaccines. But here's ones that most people don't think about. How about tetanus, folks? When was the last time you had your tetanus booster? The rule is every 10 years, unless you've had an event. When was the last time you had your tetanus shot? That's a bigger threat. You're more likely to poke your hand on a nail than you are necessarily get bit by a bat doing your work, right? So you could be bit by a bat, but so tetanus is a bigger issue. How about is your first aid kit in good repair in your vehicle? Or is it down to its last Band-Aid?
Right.
And of course, is all a mess, and your hydrogen peroxide's expired, or whatever the case is. Do you have a meaningful first aid kit? But yes, I would say get your tetanus shot up to date. Have a conversation with your doctor about the rabies shots. Because every vaccine carries there's always some level of risk, right? Now, and I'm not an anti-vaccinator. Don't accuse me of that. No. I want people to get their vaccines, but vaccines are always a risk-reward ratio. I think the reward far outweighs the risk, but you need to have that conversation with your doctor, because when I had mine done, you don't feel all that great for a couple of days, right? So the rabies vaccine is a set of 3 shots, 0 on day 0, day 7, day 14. Oh, day 0, day 7, 14, and I think it's either 21 or 28. So I think it might be 4 shots. They might have dropped it down to 3 now. But you're basically getting your immune system built up against rabies. Now, understand that if you get bit by an animal and that animal tested positive, you may still need to get additional post-exposure treatment. Okay. What the pre-exposure does is it saves you from getting what's called the gamma globulin. So the rabies vaccination after you get bit, so you have post-exposure vaccination, you get a gamma globulin shot. That's based on weight. So the heavier you are, the more you get, and it's a thick syrup, and it hurts. Like, think of syrup being pumped into your body, right? Ugh. The rest of the shots are no big deal. So the pre-exposure shots save you from getting the gamma globulin. And that also, and in some cases, if they do a titer check, you may not have to have any shots at all, because your immune system's high enough to have fought off the rabies. So I certainly recommend getting rabies shots. But again, that's a conversation you want to have with your physician, because it's a medical decision. And you have to ask, is the risk that you're taking in your field, if rabies is not really that prevalent in your area, it may not be worth your time. But in my area of Massachusetts, when I was working during the pandemic, the epidemic of rabies that we had, it was definitely worth my time, because I was hired by cities to remove sick animals that were staggering around the city, and rabies was one of the reasons why they were sick. So yeah, I was a high risk because I was doing one-on-one engagement with these animals. Right. So, but a lot of wildlife control operators, I don't know if that would be really necessary for them. If you're not doing bat work, would it be necessary? If you like to cowboy it and go after animals one-on-one and doing the hand grabs and doing crazy stuff like that, then yeah, you probably want to get your rabies shots.
Or you probably don't want to be in that business.
Or you don't want to be in that business. Yeah. But so absolutely. And so there aren't many other vaccines. I mean, you have rabies, you've got tetanus. You should get certainly your interpersonal disease issues taken care of: measles, mumps, chicken pox. I mean, clients are dangerous to us. I mean, they're sneezing and hacking all over the place on you. So your client, so you need to have whatever. There's a growing number of people that don't believe in vaccinating their children. Right. So if you didn't have, I've had measles, mumps, chicken pox, German measles. I was a germ warfare baby growing up. So, I mean, my parents exposed me to everything. So I'm immune to all that stuff. But I still got my shingles vaccine, which is just another form of chicken pox. right? So as we get older, did you get your pneumovax vaccine as you start getting older? See, this is something the younger guys, you know, they're out there in their 20s and they're trying to hit it and they're grabbing the 40-foot ladder and they're, you know, they're taking it on. Let me tell you something, folks. Protect your body.
Yeah.
You are not going to be 20 and 30 forever. And you talk to, I'm an old timer. I've been out of the ladder business for a long time now. Let me tell you something. I'm looking at colleagues and you can see the years are wearing on them. Okay.
Yeah.
Protect your body. That means slow down and try to be there to extend it out, because when you start getting 55 and 60, are you really looking to be throwing around a 32-foot ladder, climbing the roofs?
Yeah. Unless you're a bodybuilder.
And even then, you know,
Yeah.
you see a lot of those guys dealing with arthritis issues, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there aren't many, you know, a lot of people think when you're running your body at high octane, you wear it out on high octane.
Oh, I know my knees are shot. I had a car accident when I was 25 and damaged one knee. And then I worked in construction and doing tile and being on my knees and doing landscape work.
Yep.
And my knees are now shot. I mean, they are.
I wish I protected my knees more when I was doing my work. I used to
constantly
not wear knee pads, go from stud to stud to stud or in the attic. I think that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, I have that issue with my techs. I tell them, guys, put on your knee pads. I mean, we don't understand that we have Hispanics cook a lot of beans, and those beans fall on the floor. And if you've never had a bean stuck to your kneecap when you kneel down, and if you're one of my techs, he weighs like 300 pounds.
Yeah,
a ground rice will make you cry.
Yeah.
So I tell my guys, dude, put on your knee pads. Doing roach jobs, you're on your knees. Yep. Put on your knee pads because it's going to save you. And if you get injured, the lost production that I have to deal with you and your lost income, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Put on the knee pads.
You have to do it. And this is why when I do presentations, I ask, one of the things when I'm talking to wildlife control operators or PCOs, I talk about the risks that they're exposed to all the time. And then I'll say, and I'll just stop and I'll just say, are you charging enough? And it'll just be, sometimes in the audience, things kind of go a little quiet as they ponder that.
Right.
So, you know, I'm not talking about price gouging people, but the point is that we have to recognize is that you're wearing your body out with some of these activities. If you're doing a good inspection of someone's home and you're crawling through that attic, and you're going through underneath that deck, or you're going through that rank, stanky basement that they've got, you know, that may be mold all over the place.
Yeah.
You're being exposed to things that are going to affect you. I think some of my allergies, I can't say all of it, I think some of my allergies are due to my exposure to a lot.
Oh, I lost you there for a second.
Exposed to animal dander doing your wildlife control work, that your body finally says, I'm going to start attacking that. And that's what an allergy is. An allergy is an overreaction of your immune system to an allergy, to a protein.
I lost your video. Oh, there you go. You're back again. Okay, I lost your video there for a second. I had your audio, but not your video.
So this is where people have to realize is that there's people that are exposed to mouse dander, cockroach exoskeletons. You can get an allergy to that over time. Not everyone will get it, but some people will.
Yeah.
People that are lab technicians that are working in a scientific lab working with mice, they find after 5 years of working with mice, a lot of them get allergies to the mice.
Wow.
Right? So we're a time-limited business, folks. I mean, you have to be thinking, how long do you think you can keep this going?
Right.
And then we're not even talking about a vehicle accident where someone runs a red light and hits you. It doesn't have to be your fault. You can be injured and put out of business without doing anything wrong on your part. You could be walking on a roof and all of a sudden the roof collapses. How is that your fault, right? The roof, your leg goes through and maybe you go through the rest of the way. Those are things that are totally outside of our control. You know, you have to think about things like workman's comp. Do you have disability insurance? I had a friend of mine. He was going onto a garage roof. It was a 10-foot roof. Okay, we're not talking about 40-foot ladders. It was a 10-foot roof. He just put the ladder on the driveway, was climbing up. The ladder kicked out on him. He grabbed the gutter with his right arm, and then he had a stiff arm. He stiff armed as he was flat out, and his stiff arm was down like this, trying to break his fall, blew out his elbow because all that force blew this out. He basically he couldn't do work anymore other than what he could use one hand for, and he went bankrupt.